Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. Merry Christmas! And thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Be sure and ring that little bell. It looks like that, but it's actually down below. And then you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Also, be sure and visit our Facebook group called, guess what? Movie Review Mom, where we share lots of fun conversations about movies and some silly things too. Anyway, let's get on with today's movie. The movie I'm reviewing is Black Christmas. Oh, this movie is rated PG-13. It's an hour and 32 minutes, and the movie review mom I'm giving it is a D for don't waste your time or money on this movie. I always feel so badly when I give movies bad grades, but my purpose here is to help you decide which movies are the best for your family. And because movies can be so expensive, especially when you take the whole family, I want you to know where you should spend your time and your money and your energy. And this one is not it. So, in a quick nutshell, I'm going to give you an overview. Then I'll tell you some themes that are worth discussing if you do see it with friends and family, as well as some tips for parents, and then some things I liked and things I didn't like. So in a quick nutshell, what do you get when you mix angry female empowerment with horror, mystery, and Christmas? This movie. Maybe that sounded good, I don't know. The original Black Christmas came out in 1974, and then a remake came out in 2006. And I haven't seen either one of them, so I can't really compare, but I'm assuming that they're better than this one. Guys will feel like they're trapped in a gender studies class with a bunch of man haters. This is a disappointing Christmas horror by Sophia Tekal. And technically, this is a remake of the original, not a remake or a sequel of the 2006 version. It's really not a movie with a social message. It's a social message with a movie, sort of. Now, some quick tips for parents. This really is not a great movie and not worth you or your kids' time, but if they insist on seeing it, here's the heads up. People get murdered, and sometimes you see blood and gore. Not a whole lot of gore, but sometimes. A girl quickly puts her hand down her pants to put in a birth control device right in front of another girl. You don't necessarily see anything, but still, that's super crude. Girls talk about different words for pooping. There's some profanity, lots of alcohol, and people making bad choices because of alcohol. A drunk girl almost gets raped, and then there's talk of sex. And girls sing a Christmas song about assault and rape culture. You know, that classic carol. You have to read some text, so young kids won't be able to read. But again, this is not a movie you want your young kids seeing. Teach your daughter some basic self-defense, parents. Screaming and crying don't work during an attack. And most of the time, that's what the girls do, is they stand there and cry and they're helpless rather than run and get the heck out of there. That kind of stuff in horror movies drives me nuts. And of course, there's violence. Okay, so now here are some themes to look out for in the movie and worth talking about if you see this movie with friends or family. First of all, there is a lot of political activism and conscientious objector conversations. There's a lot of male versus female conversations, a lot of peer pressure, not just male versus female, but peer pressure that girls put on each other and vice versa. Friendship, loyalty are certainly some themes as well. And really, this whole movie is trying to share a feminist slant on the two original Black Christmas movies. So in that regard, I suppose it's different and fresh. On the other hand, they're just angry and ridiculous. And there are so many aspects of the movie that drive me crazy. For example, I know this is really silly, but I actually teach for a university. And so I can tell you faculty don't really have a lot of say in the actual content. especially if the university has hired them to teach content that has already been created. And so these girls are protesting and trying to get this professor fired because he's teaching classic literature, and they think that there should be more literature about women and people of different ethnicities and cultures. And while that's a valid point, that would be a different class. He's actually presenting the classics. He tries to explain that to them nicely, but they're still angry, and it's just ridiculous. Now, if the girls had really valid logical points and treated everyone with respect in their approach, maybe that would be a different movie, but instead they're just angry and man bashers, and it's just super annoying. Anyway, I'm getting onto some things I didn't like. Let me first tell you some things I did like about the movie. First of all, I've always liked Carrie Yules. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I really have liked him ever since I saw the movie The Princess Bride many years ago, one of my all-time favorite movies. It's too bad that he couldn't be in a better movie. And actually, when I first saw him, I thought, oh, he's so handsome. He's going to just be a big star. And unfortunately, his career path hasn't taken him to these huge box office hits. And I feel badly about that because I like him and he's always kind of in B movies and sometimes worse. There's something that I really liked was a super creepy looking snow angel at the very beginning of the movie after the very first murder. And the way the body was dragged, it made this shape. And I thought, ooh, this might actually be creative and scary. And that was probably the most creative kill because all of the other ones, they're just like, you're dead. Clip, cut to the next scene. Seriously. The creepy gargoyles around campus made for a perfect backdrop. And again, I thought, oh, this could be really good. They've got some of the right elements to create this ambiance. But you see it at the beginning and a tiny bit later on, and then that's pretty much it. Most of the action takes place around the fraternity house and the sorority house. Now, some things I didn't like were, first of all, for a horror movie, it's actually pretty boring. People kind of stand around and talk. There's the murder at the very beginning, and you're like, okay. And I have to preface all of this by saying I really don't like horror movies, but I wanted to review this movie for you. But anyway, I like funny horror movies, and maybe this is supposed to be funny. I don't think it really was intended to be a comedy, but it's so bad it's comical, really. The movie's just boring. Nothing much happens. Anyway, the very first trailer that Universal Studios and Blumhouse released actually had so many spoilers in it that there was a ton of backlash. The sorority girls are so angry and such man haters for the majority of the movie that they're just not very likable. And the protagonist is just paranoid almost from the very beginning before anything really happens. And she's just always suspicious of everything and everybody and kind of sullen. And, I know we're supposed to like her, but she just wasn't that interesting of a character either. The ending is disappointing and it has a very long exposition scene in an attempt to explain everything, which just kind of makes everything come to a screeching halt. And then there's another little frenzy of activity, and then it just kind of ends. There's some cringe-worthy dialogue, and most of the acting is actually really bad. There is no subtlety in its messaging. You just get bumped over the head like you're being knocked off in the movie. And the whole movie is just sort of feminist rant, and it just takes the fun out of what could have been a really fun movie. There's an interesting line in the movie at the very end by the professor played by Carrie Yules, and he says, "Women are inexplicably tied to men. Break us and you break yourselves." And actually, I thought that was a really poignant lesson. Sometimes feminists are such man haters that they forget that there is an important role for all of us, that we both complete each other, that we need each other. And to just bash the other gender and act like there's no room for them is just a very short-sighted messaging, and that's kind of how this movie felt. Was, you know, it's all or nothing, all women, no men kind of a message. Anyway, the movie just is not good, and so, but fortunately there are plenty of other movies that are out in theaters and coming out this week as well. Anyway, thank you for subscribing. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.